You're listening to Safety Café, Conversations on the Frontline, the podcast with real conversations with industry experts who live and breathe safety on the job. Whether you're on a construction site, in a warehouse, or out in the oil and gas field, this one's for you. So grab your hard hat and coffee. It's time for Safety Café.
In this episode of Safety Café, we headed to a scenic plaza in Generation Park. With stunning architecture, mouth-watering food, and top-notch coffee from the charming Lupo Cafe, it was the perfect setting for an inspiring conversation. We sat down with the insightful Bryce Stefka, safety manager at Sendero Industries, and sipped coffee as we explored his real-world experiences, unique perspectives on workplace safety, and the valuable insights he's gathered along the way. So grab your favorite brew and join us for a powerful and thoughtful conversation on today's episode of Safety Café. Well, Bryce, thank you for joining us today on the NW Safety podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So as we, dive in here, I've known you for a short while, since I would say January, correct? And, from the very beginning, I noticed that your approach to safety is different than a lot of people, and you definitely take on a mentoring approach to younger safety professionals. So as we dive in, how did you get your start in safety?
Well, that's a loaded question, but essentially what had happened was, long story short, I was in nursing school, working in emergency room, and I was doing, amongst other things, supply chain manager, everything else. But I also did the op med side. So the workers coming in from the port, Jacinto Port, everywhere else, and I was starting to get severe migraines because of the stress of the ER. So I knew that I needed to essentially get out and change career paths. So my dad, and oddly enough, I got my first shot in safety because of nepotism. Because my dad was friends with a person that used to own JV Industrial Company. So he said, "What does he do?" "Oh, it sounds like he might make a great safety guy." I was like, "Yeah, I'd love to do something to keep people from coming in here getting hurt," because everyone knows that a hospital is a community resource. Well, it's the same thing for a safety guy. We are a resource for the population of workers that we serve. So made the transition, became a safety guy for JV Industrial because of nepotism, but nepotism didn't keep my job. From here on out, I did all my own, all the certifications, degrees, all that kind of fun stuff. So that's how I got into safety.
That's awesome. A lot of people talk about nepotism being kind of like a bad word, but you have to do your part to stay there.
Yes.
It may get you in the door, and that's great, and that's opportunity, but if you don't do your part and you excel in what you're doing, then it really doesn't matter.
Yes. And almost 19 years later, here I am.
That's awesome. Is that how you met your wife? Because you were just telling me she's a hospice nurse before we started rolling here. So did you meet your wife when you were working as a nurse, or was that after?
Oh, that was well after the fact.
Oh, okay. So it's just happy coincidence.
Lovely dating apps.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yes.
So it's just, it's like you guys are naturally just caring people and just taking care of people.
She is sweeter than my own grandmother. Let's put it that way.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Except for when I annoy her, of course.
That's natural. I think.
Yes.
I think we all have that side.
Yeah, the husbands love to push the buttons, right?
That's awesome. So now, in your approach for safety,
Come on in.
We'll take that.
Yes, please.
This one's a vanilla.
Okay, that's his. So.
Thank you.
There we go.
Lovely.
That might get edited out, maybe not.
That's good.
Is it good?
It's real good.
Awesome. This is a good latte. Thanks, y'all.
Yes.
Okay, so the biggest thing that has stood out to me is seeing how you mentor people. You have some NW safety folks on your job site, and Juan and Andy, shout out to y'all. and I've seen how they've grown under your leadership. So what is your thoughts on mentorship, and what is your approach? Like, how do you draw people in?
I've definitely had experience in my past when I was first starting out. All too often, there's people that are job scared because they may or may not be competent, but they've had experiences where they've lost their jobs. So there's all too often that pressure, and this happens in a lot of different professions, to where people are job scared. They're worried that somebody more younger and more talented than them will step up and push them out. If you're no good at your job, then that may be a good way to think for you to protect self-protection, I guess. But I want everyone that's beneath me or working for me or working beside me to know everything that I do. And I don't know everything. I have to know the two main things. The two main things that you need to know as a safety professional: who to ask and where to look when you don't know. That's the two most important tools in your toolbox.
Right.
So I try to make sure that everybody that's on the same projects, even friends, I got friends that call me and previous coworkers all the time. Hey, what do you think about this? Look here, or this is the answer, or this is the way you should think about it. But everybody needs to know the same level of information that you do, because you can't be everywhere all the time. And I really do appreciate Andy and Juan working with me, because they're really excelling. When I first got, I'm sure Juan didn't know what to think about me from the get-go, but we've progressed in our rapport, and it's been a fantastic relationship so far. Andy's new to the fold, but I think he's starting to thrive.
By the way, Juan liked you from day one. So he called me. He was like, I think I like this guy. So
well, good.
Yeah. And he's not necessarily one to like jump to like say he likes somebody, but he's like, I think I like this guy. So yeah, that was from day one.
It's because I give him a hard time all the time.
That's what it is.
No, I do like giving him responsibility, making sure that he knows that when I'm not there, he's the tip of the spear. He is in control. He doesn't have to call me for everything. He is empowered to make decisions. He is empowered to correct stuff. And when he can't, I'm his resource.
He has such great energy.
Yes.
I have to say that about Juan.
And the guys trust him.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest things, is when you win people over, you can help convince them to do the right thing. And as always, the easiest way to get people to comply with what the safety protocols are is convince them it's their idea. Lead them in the right direction. I know they have the old adage, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Right.
You're doing the same thing with workers that are older, stubborn, set in their ways. But if you make it their idea, compliance is easy.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it comes down to great leadership skills, right? Because a great leader is not necessarily telling somebody what to do. They're leading by example, and they get them on that walk, right? Like you just said, you make them believe it's their idea from the beginning, right? But that is built with rapport and relationship. And I see sometimes on the field what we call safety cops, right?
Oh, yeah.
I think they're on every large project. And how do you deal with a safety cop?
So there's an interesting story. A few years ago, when I was hired by Air Products as a third-party consultant, during the interview process, they were talking about some different things, and I guess they decided they liked me, so they wanted to level with me and talk about some experiences they had. And I said, they asked me about, how would you handle stuff, either to my detriment or not. My answer is, I am not a safety cop. I am not there to. They said, oh, great, because let me tell you what happened. This is a hypothetical. No, it's not even a hypothetical. This actually happened. We had a guy out there blowing whistles at people for safety infractions.
Oh, my goodness.
While they're moving stuff with a crane, while people are on the arc welding, while they're turning wrenches, right? Blowing whistles at people all the time. And they said, what would you do with him? I said, I would let you know when I got back from cleaning my boot off from kicking him out the gate, what he did to get himself gone if he worked for me. They go, yeah, it was a mad rush to who could run him out first. I get it.
Wow.
Safety cops do not win rapport. They don't get anything done. They don't have a good relationship with people. They're going to struggle, spin their wheels, and get nowhere other than gaining resentment.
Absolutely. I can't believe somebody would actually have a whistle on a job site. And yeah, that's kind of bizarre.
Yeah.
So on that line, how do you change a company's safety culture? What's your approach?
Well, you have to be patient. It is going to take time. You have to have management's buy-in and explain to them why they have to do what they have to do if they're not already doing it.
Right.
They may know what they have to do, they just don't know how to get there. And that's why there's things out there like, ISO 45001, ANSI 10, all those different frameworks for how you build a comprehensive HSE management system, OH&S, whatever you want to label it. It's like saying JSA, JHA to me anyway.
Right.
But it's going to be, over time, you have to turn them little by little, except for the IDLH stuff, of course. The IDLH stuff, right then and there, you have to stop. But everything else that's procedural, you can argue all day behind closed doors about how to skin a cat while work progresses. IDLH stuff, we have to fix it. But you have to turn them very little by little and not overwhelm them. So eventually they're standing on their ear and they're doing right, and they don't even realize that they're standing on their ear.
So how do you get, let's say, have you had a situation where you had a really challenging management that didn't want to buy into safety?
Yeah, absolutely.
And how did you get them to buy in?
So this was at a previous existence. I'm not going to name names.
It's okay. Yeah, it's better not to.
My resume's out there, so there's people can go through the list of people that's on there. It's one of those, yes. But I was walking through a facility that I was interviewed, brought out. I was actually shared from one company to another because they were sister companies through a private equity acquisition. But I showed up and their TRIR was atrocious for their NAICS code. Year over year, atrocious for several years in a row. Got in the door and I was walking with one, there wasn't much higher up in the food chain. And I was like, whoa, that person is about 20 foot in the air and they have a harness on, but nowhere to tie off. You leave that guy alone. He's getting stuff done. And I was like,
oh my goodness.
Whoa, did I bite off more than I could chew?
Yeah.
But essentially, you start from the framework, the ground up, to review the HSE policy and procedures. And to say it was lacking would be an understatement. So started to incorporate, develop, and to place the policies how it fit how they were doing work. There was lots of machines, there was lots of moving equipment, lots of trucks, lots of everything. So there was fleet safety, there was mobile equipment train. So I started from the basis of, where do you want to be? Do you want to be a company that sells a whole bunch or very little and just be a small package vendor? Or do you want to grow and be with the big boys? The obvious answer was grow and be with the big boys.
Right.
So we started implementing training for the management to help them understand what their liability was. I mean, this is the same company that I couldn't get them in hard hats at their corporate office where the owner and CEO sat, and the president of operations, the VP of operations. All these folks right out their back door, folks with overhead cranes, gantry cranes, mobile cranes, all kinds of stuff. No hard hats.
Wow.
Yeah. But you go to their other two facilities, well, my facility at the time before I became the director of HSE, there was an obvious progression at this point because they were happy with what happened. But I had to go sit with the president and say, hey, you've got, at this time, there's several facilities, and the only one that you're at all of them, you're doing all these different operations, including all this overhead hazards, and everywhere except for where you sit down every day at your desk, everyone else has this standard set of PPE. But here, we don't. Well, we're going to lose some welders. Well, good riddance, because you don't need those people, because there's this hazard. And by the way, if you get called to the witness stand when something falls and hits, like that week, a piece of a crane had fallen off and bounced off the ground right next to somebody. So there's a near miss, section 5A1, there's a recognized hazard you have to do something about. It's like, you have it. Not that you didn't need it before, but you have it now.
Right.
We have to do something. And by the way, if you get called to witness stand, you walk out the back door after you give your statement of, Mr. So-and-so, do you have these facilities? Yes. What word do you use? All the facilities the same? Yes. All right, so let's come outside and talk about how many zeros are on the check. And it's usually going to be one or two more than you really are prepared for.
Absolutely.
So within 2 weeks, everyone at that facility was in hard hats. But it was a struggle. It was a battle over every little thing. Why? I have to justify it with why. So once you can get on the management side where they understand where the why is coming from, and you can build it in a business case scenario and do the CBA for them as to what the non-compliance versus compliance looks like, they have a whole lot less resistance to getting on board. I know that was a convoluted, long way to get there, but
absolutely. I mean, I think that if anybody has ever sat through a deposition for a fatality or an injury, then you absolutely know that you don't want to sit there again.
yes.
And if you can convey that to management, then it's all for the win.
And I've used that before too. I have sat for a deposition after a work-related incident.
Yeah.
Not fun.
It feels like you're being gutted, just right there, skinned alive in front of a bunch of people.
And people that are resistant to doing the paperwork for JHAs and JSAs and whatever else is involved, confined space paperwork. Even if you're off in a satellite location where you think OSHA's never going to show up, OSHA's going to show up.
Yeah.
You are on their target list, no matter what. If you're in a high hazard industry, depending on upon your NACE code, you're pre-programmed. They're coming eventually, so you might as well be prepared.
Eventually, yeah.
So I forget where I was going with that, but yeah, you just always have to be prepared. But I used that specific instance where, had I not documented the way that I documented with the diligence of documentation from that incident, because that court date isn't coming tomorrow. That court date could be a year or two out. And in this case, it was 2.5 years later.
Right.
And I was in a room with 8 lawyers against me.
Yeah.
And they said, well, Mr. Stefka, did this really happen? And I was like, what's the email say? What's the report say? What's all this stuff? Well, then that's what I saw, because that's why I documented. That is memorializing it in an irrefutable evidential way. And if you have that backup, if you do what you're supposed to do, retain those documents, you're good.
Documentation is everything.
Yes.
Especially, like you said, in those cases, because if you can show that due diligence,
yes,
and that's what we try, working with our clients, we try to get down to that. Like, the more you document, the more that you show your good faith effort to provide a safe working environment for your employees, the better off you are when it comes to liability. So, I mean, one part is doing it just because it's the right thing to do and take care of people, right? But if you're making that business case, then that makes sense,
Well, and people always like to say people first, all that safety is priority. Everyone knows that safety is about money in one way or another.
Yeah.
Because when you're working safer and you're more productive, your company makes more money.
Yeah.
So having a good safety culture and a good safety program is as much about, business success as anything else.
What I have found, there is a correlation. Now, I don't have any studies on this or anything like that, but I do believe that there is a correlation between safety excellence and operational excellence. And when you have safety excellence, it starts to go into your operational excellence, because it's a way of doing business, basically. So it does come down to the numbers. When you start leading with that safety mind, it starts to show in your operations, because I feel like employees now feel like they're being valued, and so they work differently. And,
yes.
And that comes down to the bottom line.
Yes.
Yeah. Not everybody totally gets it at the beginning, but when the numbers start to make sense, and it takes some time to turn it around, but when it starts to happen, it's great.
And sometimes a well-funded BVS program definitely helps in dangling that carrot along the way to promote compliance, but that's also a good morale booster across the board too. And when they start buying in, they see management supporting it, you oftentimes get there a lot faster than you would have without it.
Absolutely. Well, I think money talks.
Yes, always.
Incentives talk, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So do you have a way that you like to set up programs like that?
I mean, it's all cookie cutter at that point. I mean, you have to have some sort of, statistical feedback from it. So whether it's going to be a card or some sort of form or whatever it is they turn in, it has to be reviewed. So you're only going to get good out if you put good in. Right. I mean, I've gotten some cards back at some of those, we'll call them, they were earlier in their stages of evolution in their safety culture. Certain things drawn on the cards when they were turned in, everything else that were, not safe to share over the air.
Yeah.
But eventually it came around to where everyone was on board. Yeah. Some of those people had to depart the company for their performance. But
right.
But one of my favorite more to your point about the business case for being safe.
Yeah.
One of my favorite safety meetings to give is the safety, quality, efficiency. The three-pronged success for every project.
Yeah.
And I was literally telling Andy and Juan about this. I told Andy about it a while ago. Yeah. But safety, quality, efficiency. Everyone knows why safety is important to a safety guy. Nobody gets hurt. You have all your policies, procedures, paperwork, PPE, everything in place. So that's normal. We don't have to go through that. Why is quality important to a safety guy? The easy reason, you do it right the first time, you don't have to do it again, because when you take it out and put it back again, you've already potentially exposed yourself to the exact same set of hazards 2 more additional times than the original putting it in. And why would efficiency matter? Same thing as quality. It's more efficient you are doing their work. The example I typically try to use is, if you're out in a refinery and you're climbing up to a 250-foot tower, and you don't have a crane for support, and you have to go up and down the tool room 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times before you ever start, and your tongue is dragging on the way up the ladder, you're probably not going to be in the best frame of mind to make good decisions. Right. And you're going to be behind schedule and be everything else. And if you're stopping for safety, you're slowing down your production. So that's why if you safety, quality, and efficiency are all on path, the rest of it takes care of itself.
Yeah, absolutely. So it seems like you have a lot of experience as far as like the theory side of safety.
Yes.
So you have your degree in safety?
Occupational safety and health from Columbia Southern University.
That's awesome. So what's your thought on the hierarchy of controls?
Hierarchy of controls. I actually wrote a paper on it when I was getting my bachelor's degree from Columbia Southern. So most people, when you quiz them, you ask them about the hierarchy of controls. You ask them what they're, especially engineers, the first thing they come out with, the most effective control, is engineering controls. Mm-hmm. And when the Z10 came out from 2009, it was updated in 2012, and I think again in 2019. But when it came out, it and added elimination and substitution. So, and you can go through, and I like to do that safety meeting as well. When you talk about, how do you eliminate a hazard? You have a ladder with a hammer sitting at the top, you pull the ladder down. Mm-hmm. If you're welding with, say, a high manganese wire, and a few years back, they reduced the manganese from 0.2 to 0.02, nanograms per deciliter or micrograms, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. But that's a significant factor of, reduction in exposure. So you go from a high manganese wire to, like, say, a Kobelco, much lower manganese wires, part of the fume particulate. And then you get to engineering controls. But all too often, it still seems that people are, the first thing they go for is engineering controls. But then you have on down, you have your administrative controls, signage, PPE, barricades, policies, procedures, work rotation. And I actually got in trouble on LinkedIn a while back because I posed the question. I like to talk about safety theory and ask people questions, see what they think. So, what's your thoughts on whether or not PPE belongs on the hierarchy of controls? And people lost their ever-loving minds. I had to take the post down. There was so much negativity. Well, I was just thoughts. There was no thoughts. It was just straight to bashing. But in the paper that I wrote, I made the argument that PPE does not belong on the hierarchy of controls because it is not a control for hazards. It is a consequence mitigator to your person. It doesn't stop the arc from flashing. It doesn't stop the grinder from throwing stuff at your eyes. Matter of fact, sometimes it doesn't even stop the grinder disc when it explodes in your face and it goes through that face and embeds you. It doesn't control the hazard. It mitigates the consequence to your person.
I agree with you. Because, if you're wearing a hard hat and something falls, if it was a tool from a higher level, then that tool should have been tethered, right? So then you're right, it's just mitigating something that should have been prevented from happening. So I agree with you.
That's another safety meeting that I like to give when I start asking people, and when I'm introducing myself to a new company, and I've done this for a while now, it's like, anybody want to know how a safety guy thinks? Well, at least how this safety guy thinks. I go through that and talk through the hierarchy of controls top down. I was like, but what happens when you go to your job? What's the first thing you think about? Do I have my PPE? Do I have my permit? Do I have my JHA? Do I have all the tools I need? Let's go get to work. When I walk up, what are we doing? Do we even have to do it? Mm-hmm. elimination.
Okay.
Do we have to do it this way? Substitution. Is there a way you can guard yourself? Welding shields, building a hooch, whatever it is, protect the people around you, engineering controls-ish. And then, we have to have all these people in here. Can we move people around? Can we sequence our work to not expose to me people to whatever hazard you're producing? And then, and then barricade people. I keep them away. I know they have work to do, but just kick them out.
Yeah.
Control your sandbox.
Right.
And then the very last thing, PPE. It drives me nuts when people that's their only sacred cow is PPE. Is like, whoa, are you missing the mark?
Absolutely. And you said something about, JHAs. When people feel like they got the PPE, the JHAs, and they're ready to go. What are your thoughts? A lot of times we see JHAs and they're just copy and pasted from the day before. Is there a way that you mitigate that in like a leadership stance to make sure that people are actually doing their JHAs, working through and thinking through their processes?
So there's not a real good way unless you're there in a part of the development process each and every day to ensure they're not doing that.
Yeah.
What you're going to see a propensity for across most industries is they're going to pick their one guy, one girl, whoever it is, that is their English major. That's really good at writing them, that keeps them out of trouble with the safety guys. That's the only way they know how to do business, and that happens all over the place. The only way that you can ensure it's not happening, and of course looking for making sure all the signatures don't have the same handwriting, that's a fun one. Or don't look photocopied. That's another one. Yeah, I've seen a lot. You've seen a lot. It's out there, but going out, talking to folks, quizzing.
Yeah.
And I do whenever I go out in the field and I'm doing an audit, because of course I tell people I'm always auditing. I'm always writing stuff down. We always have to do that as part of our job. I never carry paper, ever. I don't walk out there with a tablet and say, oh yeah, I know I have the guys doing that because we're doing this pilot for sight dogs.
Right.
Because they need to take pictures, and they carry their iPads. But whenever I'm going out with a company that doesn't trust me, I think this company trusts me now.
Yeah.
I know they trust Juan. I don't think there's a single problem, and they're still learning Andy, and I think they're starting to be able to go to him. But you have to go out there and build the rapport with them, be able to talk to them as people, and then start quizzing them. What are we doing over here? Why are we doing it that way? And then verifying that it's there. If that person has the knowledge of what's going on that matches up with the paperwork, I'm not going to beat them up about how they get there.
Right.
As long as everyone on the crew, and make your way around, talk to different people. What are you doing? Is that the right face shield? Is it ZA7 Plus? Have you or plus? Or whatever is required for the job based on what they're doing, based on what the hazards are, and see if they know what's in the paperwork versus, hey, what's on your JHA?
Right.
That's more of a safety cop mentality.
Absolutely.
So I'd just like to talk to people, verify that they know what's going on, make sure the paperwork matches up, and if it doesn't, then we have to do some retraining.
Yeah. It's a collaborative approach, and with our safety professionals, that is something that we focus on, is building relationship. When you go in, because we're hired on a contract basis, you also have Carlos out in Hutto, and his big thing is to build relationships.
I still need to go visit him.
But so what we do with our guys is build relationship, go out there, because we come on a contract basis. Sometimes it's for 2 months, 3 months, and then those 3 months turn into 6 months and sometimes longer. So we say build a relationship. You're not there to police anybody. We do continuous training with our people, and we do check in weekly. Hey, how's it going? How are you building relationships with your crew members? And at the end, within 2-3 months, just like Juan, the guys on your crews, they've told us, like off record, how much they love Juan, right?
Yes.
And they're getting to know Andy. We've heard about how much they love Carlos, right?
I know how much they love Carlos. You know how I know for a fact?
How do you know that?
I mentioned something to Edgar about what was going on out there at Hutto, and Edgar turns around and calls him directly.
Yes.
They have that kind of relationship, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Which Edgar's your superintendent, so
general superintendent over everyone.
Yeah, and he had no problem calling calling Carlos and
Go straight to him.
Yeah, and Carlos has spoken highly of Edgar as well. So they've built that rapport. That's great. I mean, that's what we love to hear.
Yeah, Edgar's fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the general superintendent. Anybody can call him. Anybody can ask him anything. But he is fantastic at what he does. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to get there. He knows how to get the job done.
Yeah.
And, working together, we have been able to do some interesting things. I know I told Juan, I shared a video with Andy and Juan about what we're doing at some other projects, some of the different shoring systems we're going to and trying out for some different projects that are different, configured differently from the airport. I'm really excited about the SPH. Have y'all used SPH before?
No, tell us more.
At another project, we're doing some pipe jacking and bringing in the SPH shoring system that utilizes slide rail, the panels on the side with the sheet guides on the end so that you configure it so you have the space to jack the pipe through. It is absolutely fantastic, fit for purpose, safe for the folks, and luckily we aren't too deep because the system's good up to 29 feet. So it is absolutely wonderful. When we get done installing it, it should look like it came directly from an excavation magazine.
That's awesome.
I'm excited to see it.
If you ever let us take some pictures so that we can feature some excavation photos, we're working on some LMS stuff, and so we could take some photos of some of your projects, and that would be a great one so that we can feature it in our LMS.
That would be cool.
Yeah. So if somebody wanted to get into safety, how would you recommend them to start?
So everyone's educational path is different. Mine was different from what most others would be. Of course, nepotism was where I started, and then I started building my credentials after that.
Yeah.
I started with an associate's degree in biology, which I called my baseball degree when I played baseball in college. But then I started with the CSST, CSSS, and then went up from there.
Right.
CHST, that kind of all the different stuff, HAZWOPER, and you name it. But those things are out there, and so I would say start at the bottom, wherever you feel comfortable.
Right.
And then, of course, you have to invest in yourself to where you want to be. There's going to be jobs out there that you can get in the door right now with a CHST, and other folks that won't even talk to you without a 510 or whatever the case is.
Right.
So it's based on where you want to go and what you need to do, but always invest in yourself.
Right.
Is the most important thing.
Okay.
So if you want to succeed and excel and not stay stagnant, always be looking for the next thing. And I always promote certifications from BCSB. So I think it's a year, and you can qualify a year and 50% or more. I don't remember what the training requirements are, but you have to have at least 50% of your duties be safety, and you can get a CHST. But it's not the easiest, but there's a lot of math, depending on which version of the test you get. But it's still good to go and get something that's nationally recognized versus, some states do like C-Show, Co-Show, whatever they want to call them. Some stuff is bigger in Louisiana versus Texas. But if you go with something more overarching, like from the Board of Certified Safety Professionals, that's where you want to go.
But like the CHST, because I know a CSP or an ASP requires a degree, correct?
A degree, and in order to take the CSP, you have to have a qualifying credential like the ASP, which is what I plan to do soon.
So do I.
That's going to be fun. My application has been sitting there forever, and it's just between traveling coast to coast and internationally. I haven't had time to study and much less think about it. But now that I'm home, working from home for the last 3 months, and I'm actually going to start getting myself motivated to go get it done.
That's awesome.
I'll plan to take them in succession.
That's awesome, because you have done a big transition. You've done a lot of travel as a safety professional.
Yes.
Did you go all over the world or just around the United States?
The furthest I've worked away from home besides Canada is St. Croix.
Okay.
But other than that, coast to coast, U.S.
Yeah. What motivated you to move back home or start working from home?
A wife and a young son.
That's a good reason.
Yeah. I'm 45, about to be 46. I feel like I put my time in. It's time for some younger guys to go out there and chase the big money. And again, third party was really good to us and allowed us to do a lot of things, but it didn't hardly ever allow us to do them together.
Yeah.
And eventually you have to start to prioritize, you know, what's important in your life and the people that are important in your life, and take a step back. Some people never get out of it. They're the sole breadwinner.
Right.
I'm lucky enough, my wife is a hospice nurse. She makes good money, and she told me eventually if I don't stay home and start fishing again, she's going to buy me a boat and probably break my ankles and just keep me home and just lower me in the boat, and I can do the throttle.
So you're like, we don't need to go that far with the strategy.
No,
like,
no, I'm good.
You convinced me, I'll stay.
Sometime last year I started looking to find a place that I could call home and retire. Awesome. And once I came across the management team at Sendero, I feel like I found my fit.
That's awesome.
So, I mean, there's a lot of opportunities out there. I believe when I interviewed with the COO, Richard Gann, I feel like our priorities align and our vision on how a company should operate align.
Yeah.
And working with the supervision and management team that we have, it's been a fantastic experience so far. I don't want to be anywhere else.
That's awesome.
We're all going to grow together.
There you go. I love it. That's awesome. Yeah. We know Richard from a previous company, so now he's at Sendero, and it's great to see like a lot of familiar faces at Sendero.
Yes.
So as we wrap up, Bryce, is there any last thing that you would like to share?
Yeah, for anybody looking to get into safety, learn how to talk to people. Learn how to get at a safety meeting. Learn how to communicate with people effectively.
Yeah.
As a child, I was mortified of speaking in public, and until the time I was 13 years old, I didn't say probably 7 words in public, and that was at the behest of my parents forcing me to say yes or no sir to people that we met in public.
Wow.
And you know, family, whatever aside, that was different. But it was just general public speaking, zero. I'm from a small town, or I guess it's no longer a small town, Deer Park, here southeast of Houston, and we won the state baseball championship when I was 13. My mother had us calling from all our different tournaments on the way up to state, calling 93Q, Harley Colt, whatever her name was, I think it was Harley Colt, and had me talking on the radio. And at some point, she goes, "You do realize how many people just heard you say that, right?" Because she knew about my public speaking fear.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I didn't want to call anymore, but she still forced me.
Yeah.
So got into my freshman year in college, went to speech, just total quaking boots. I didn't want to show up for class. I was so afraid of speaking in public.
Yeah.
But once I finally got over that, speaking in public part, being able to give safety meetings, because one of the worst things besides being a safety cop is not being able to get your point across and give a good safety meeting. You will be judged, you will be run out, essentially, especially if you're a one-man band and don't have a good support group. But being able to effectively communicate is one of the most important tools that you have as a safety professional. And one of my favorite tips to give people is your cadence. If you are able to speak succinctly, slow down, let your mouth catch up to your brain. And that way you're not going to stumble over yourself in the classic case of show up and throw up. I'm doing it to you now, if you haven't noticed.
I always say like cold head, warm heart, right?
Yes.
And that is so important, because I don't like public speaking. I can communicate very well with people one-on-one. However, it's not my favorite thing. But recently, I've made it my challenge to overcome that and speak in larger groups, because like you said, it's so important to be effective with your communication and in large groups, right?
Yes.
And so it's something to be developed, and it's there's a whole thought process, on that. So I will take all your tips.
And it takes time to develop it, because the first time that I was, my first safety assignment with JV Industrial was over at Lyondale Channel View in August of 2006. 2 weeks into being in the turnaround, the guy that was my mentor, fantastic dude, his name's Russell LaFrance, one of the best guys I've ever worked with. I would work with him again. But he turns to me one morning and goes, "All right, the mic's yours. No prep, no topics. Your turn." out of the frying pan into the fire. And I literally stood up there, stared at my boots, and shifted back and forth. And hey, guys, doing a great job with the PPE and earplugs and doing the gloves. And I stumbled hard.
The thing is, I can't even imagine you being like that. Like, having met you this year, right? I can't even imagine you being like that.
This was 18 and a half years ago. So it was when I was real green. And the majority of the folks that that was a really large job. That was in front of a lot of people.
That was your baptism by fire right there.
And I went from not being able to do a speech in speech class in college to, hey, here's 800 people in this tent.
Wow.
Talk to them.
Wow.
About what? I don't know. So it's not everyone's first experience is going to be that way, but you have to develop those skills in order to effectively communicate, because it's going to be just as important talking in front of 800 people in a lunch tent as to talking to 3 guys working out in a field, working on a pipeline. So it doesn't matter where you are, being able to talk to people and convey your message without, one, hurting their feelings.
Right.
Or offending them, or trying to talk down to them and just say, hey, let's talk about this stuff. What y'all got going on? If y'all thought about this, let's take a look at your JSA and let's work together. But those different things that we do on a day-to-day basis, unless you can say, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing here, here's how I'm here to help you, they're not going to trust you.
Absolutely.
So, but that was my last little tidbit.
People
effective
skills.
Communication, yes.
Yeah. People skills and effective communication.
Yes.
Well, Bryce, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast, and look forward to seeing you on the field.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Safety Café Conversations on the Front Line. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And we'll see you next time.